start it with the Jabberwocky.
The Jabberwocky? You want to start by quoting Chaucer again for no reason?
Yeah, we can start from the very beginning of the Canterbury Tales again. So we can start because one of April with the shore sota, the droops of marsh have persitu rota, unbothered every vine in swish liqueur, of which there too ungendered is the fleur. Once the fair sacred is fated breatha, in spirit hath in every halton hither.
Is this accent accurate, by the way?
Yeah, of course it's accent accurate.
Okay, all right.
If I wouldn't, I'm not going to memorize the first 18 lines like Canterbury does. We're not going to start again.
All right. Do you have an accurate Anglo-Saxon accent, too?
Well, I don't know the first 4 lines of Beowulf. All I know is what is the first line of Beowulf.
Okay.
And then at one point they say shield safling, that was good Kuning, which means he was a good king.
Oh, Kuning, like Koning in German.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And so that's the only lines of Beowulf I know, unfortunately. Maybe I should do that one next so that we can have a different intro.
I read
different Old English intro.
I read Beowulf and I was very disappointed that he never actually was a werewolf or had anything to do with wolves. Feels like misleading.
It's basically false advertisement. I think you should go after Mr. Beowulf who wrote this story. It's it's an Old English story, yet it's about a Danish person.
Yeah.
Once again, a bamboozle.
Yep. Screw those fucking Anglo-Saxons. I hope they lose the Battle of Hastings and get conquered by Normans.
I know. You know what? And I have some good news from you, actually.
Oh, really?
Word just came. Yeah, William the Bastard. New king of England.
Oh, really? Is it Harold Hardrada?
No, it's William the Bastard.
Oh, damn.
And we now call him William the Conqueror because that William the Bastard's a bit rude to call our new wonderful Norman king.
Oh man, I had money on Harold Hardrada. Crap. Oh well.
Well, it just the Norwegians simply didn't win today, but it's okay. I'm sure that nothing bad will happen from having England be ruled half in France and half in the British Isles.
Yeah, no, that system can't possibly cause about 800 years of fighting and resentments. Yeah. All right, let's finally.
Speaking of 800 years of fighting and resentment, the Final Fantasy series,
the Final Fantasy Wiki, 800 years of resentment and conflict. All right. Good evening, welcome to the Final Fantasy Wiki podcast. I'm your host, BlueHighwind, and joining me tonight is Skaith and Yuanchosaan.
Hello.
Yes. If you don't know what a Final Fantasy Wiki is, a wiki is a compendium of knowledge as written by fans, and it's, I think, a specific kind of computer program, maybe? And Final Fantasy is a video game series. It says final, but they've actually made a lot of them, so it's misleading. Yep.
They made so many that they even had to, make their own wiki about them, it turns out.
Yes.
It's crazy. And then they made the card game called Lord of Vermilion that we've always been, that for some reason occupied a very large portion of my life.
Really?
Even though I've never played it. No, because it was like a large portion of arguments about whether or not it was okay, this is the real 800 years of warfare about Final Fantasy wikis, whether or not something is actually a Final Fantasy game or not. See, you think that would be an easy discussion.
No,
but
it's
not.
It
simply isn't. It's not.
Okay. So me and 8-Bit actually were recently on a fandom live stream thing. This guy Lucas DeRuiter, who I'm a mutual on with Twitter, and I think he might have also been in that fandom. We're gonna go and do bad, BuzzFeed articles thing that I was doing for a little while. I think he was also part of that. So we were on there, and one of the things that came up is why Bravely Default is not part of the Final Fantasy Wiki anymore, and I had to admit, I'm like, you know what, I fought as hard as I could, and eventually, you know what, you can win. Alright, you know what, it's just like if, say, you're a Norman Duke fighting the French King. You can win, you have to win every battle. If you lose one, then you lose everything. And in this case, exactly. I lost that battle, so...
Never bet in Norway in the Battle of Hastings. That's what I learned.
Well, it was the Battle of Stirling Bridge, something bridge. I forget what the name.
Oh, yeah,
of the
maybe
bridge
Norway is it was Harold Goodwin, which was Hastings. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Harold Goodwin was the king of England. Harold Hardrada was the king of, I think, Norway and Denmark, and he had some claim from Canute the Great over England. And you know what? Yeah, that doesn't matter. That's not at all relevant to the Final Fantasy Wiki podcast, which is what we do.
Except that Final Fantasy XVI, of course, is a retelling of the Battle of Hastings, and you play as.
Just like how Final Fantasy Tactics is a retelling of the War of the Roses.
Yes, it's like a whole
horrible demons.
It's like a whole long thing where actually Final Fantasy XVI. They want to get back to Final Fantasy's roots, which is of course, everyone's favorite part of Final Fantasy is retelling of English wars, and so finally Final Fantasy XVI focusing on the Battle of Hastings. You play as William, but known as his nickname Clive.
Yes.
As he goes, he summons the giant demons to go destroy Harold Goodwin, which I believe is the plot of Final Fantasy XVI.
Is this actually Goodwinson?
Goodwinson?
Maybe.
Well, it's usually like the son or whatever. Is like how they did it, right? With the last names. Okay, let's look up Harold Goodwin.
I don't know. It's
Godwinson. American
Godwinson.
actor.
Harold Godwinson. This is all right. I apologize to all my Anglo-Saxon listeners to have gotten Harold Godwinson's name wrong. But you know what? Actually, speaking of Final Fantasy XVI and the War of the Roses, everyone's comparing Final Fantasy XVI to Game of Thrones, which of course is also heavily inspired by the War of the Roses.
Yeah, and I think the comparisons fall a little bit short because, as we've already established, the War of the Roses didn't happen until about 300 years later. And while Final Fantasy XVI is an absolutely lore-accurate retelling of the Norman invasion.
Or,
in fact, I think
could it possibly...
I think the Bayou Tapestry. Yeah, the Bayou Tapestry is literally... Like, if you go look at the Bayou Tapestry, that spoils all of Final Fantasy XVI. Don't go look at it.
Okay,
like, don't go look that up. It's literally just spoilers.
Okay. Or maybe it's based on the anarchy of Stephen and Matilda. The lesser-known English Civil War that's actually much cooler. Maybe there just aren't very good sources, and there aren't very much houses. You know what? We keep talking nonsense. It's possible we're going to be even weirder than normal, because I'm recording kind of late right now, and I've had a very busy day. But you know what? We don't really have all that much to report on anyway, because... we're basically just in the lead up to Final Fantasy XVI, so Yoshi P is just out there giving interviews, and we have more trailers, and there's a cover reveal on Game Informer, and et cetera, but it's just all the same stuff. I feel like all we're going to do is talk about Final Fantasy XVI's like 4 topics over and over again, and I don't want to talk about this game anymore until I played it. So,
well, I think news number 1 is that this game was banned in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yeah.
Saudi Arabia, being famous supporters of Harold Goodwinson, found this they really wanted to, the king of Saudi Arabia, he calls up Yoshi P and he's like, why can't I play as Harold Goodwinson in this game? And Yoshi P's like, no, it's lore accurate, so you have to play as Clive, William the Conqueror. Banned in Saudi Arabia immediately. It just happens that way.
Okay. So, I don't know what this particularly means, because Saudi Arabia's video game industry business is something I haven't looked into all that much. I don't know how many games they typically ban. This one Insider Gaming article mentions that they have banned the God of War series, the Grand Theft Auto series, Last of Us Part 2, etc. Mostly for violence, gambling, nudity, sexual themes, whatever. Apparently... I think the news that came out is because there's an LGBT scene, specifically maybe like a man-on-man scene, is what I heard. I don't know if that's 100% accurate.
I mean, in all seriousness, they're not going to change the game for Saudi Arabia.
No.
It doesn't really. It's not.
No.
It's not a huge market, and you're only going to upset thousands of other people. Yeah. By editing games to meet Saudi Arabia's own, no doubt, arcane and bizarre censorship rules.
Yes. I don't... to be honest, I've never actually heard a news report ever before about video gaming in Saudi Arabia. So I feel as much out of my depth as I possibly could about anything that was ever come up before on this podcast. But let's see what else happened. We do have some wiki news. You guys like wikis, right?
Yeah, everyone loves wikis.
Okay. So we do have a small issue that's come up, which is that Imgur, the Reddit image site, they've suddenly decided that they're going to delete everything that is ever been posted by anonymous content, which is an enormous amount of the internet's history from the last 10 years just getting completely wiped out. I think also they are destroying pretty much everything that is like pornographic in nature, which is pretty enormous considering Reddit's history. So that's all gone, and any Imgur links that were on the Final Fantasy Wiki we've had to remove, or because they're all dead, basically.
That seems like a good way to destroy their business.
Here it's because Reddit is trying to go public. They're trying to do like the stock opening thing, the IPO business, and so that could be it. I don't know. It seems like an incredibly stupid and short-sighted thing to do, but that's what every tech company does now. Stupid and short-sighted things. The other thing is... Oh, yes, Scathe?
Oh, no, I was trying to figure out a reason online, and there is none, as far as I can tell.
Nope. They just did it. Actually, Google recently announced that they were going to start deleting a whole bunch of inactive accounts, including possibly a whole ton of YouTube accounts. They at least gave a vague reason, which is that if a dead account still exists, it could be a vector for piracy and fraud, which is bullshit, but they at least, came up with something to justify their greed. In Imgur's case, they've just done nothing. They don't care. So the other wiki news is that our own Subcolor Mage has, I think, made a new dark theme, a new Final Fantasy XVI theme for the website. I've actually not looked at it.
He's looking for feedback, so if you're on the FFWiki Discord, please add him. I think he's made a thread as well.
He made a friend?
A thread.
Oh, a thread.
You could make friends as well. You're them. I'm sure he's happy to be your friend.
I'm sorry, I'm unable to pronounce the TH sound because English is my second language.
Oh, I couldn't do it either as a kid. I had to go to, an actual therapist in school.
Seems a bit cruel to make someone who can't pronounce the TH sound go to the speech therapist.
Well, eventually they pushed it out of me. So now I could say Scathe instead of... Yeah.
Where else would you be?
I don't know where I'd be.
So many great sounds lost. Although the TH sound is pretty rare, I think, in languages as a whole, so really not that useful.
No. It also, as a kid, I genuinely had no idea what they were talking about. They're like, you're saying 3 wrong. You're saying free. And I'm like, you just said the same sound. I'm 5 years old. I have no idea what I'm doing wrong right now.
To be honest, I still don't really understand. It seems unnecessary, like rolling R's.
I mean, rolling R's is just a romance conspiracy to try to keep people from being able to speak that language properly, all those different languages properly.
I
think
here first. Rolling R's is just fun. Perro. That's just fun. That's just a fun thing to do with your tongue. I think more languages should come up with sounds that you do that are just fun to do. Anyway. I think that's kind of it. Oh, Final Fantasy XVI will have no DLC. There was a big Sony State of Play last week. We got a new Final Fantasy XVI trailer, which I think is the last one we're going to get. It looks like all the other trailers to me, to be honest. Actually, guys, what do you think of Final Fantasy XVI? I don't think we've actually covered that on the podcast, because you guys haven't been on for a little while.
We've both been pretty excited about the game, I think. I honestly don't find the trailers that exciting, but I'm excited about the game. You're right, the trailers are all kind of samey. It looks kind of like an edgelord game. That's fine. I used to play a lot of FF14, so I'm excited to see what Yoshi P is cooking up. I'm just excited for another Final Fantasy game because it's been a really long time.
I agree. I have exactly the same opinion. It looks like fun. We'll say. I mean, it can't possibly be less finished than Final Fantasy 15 or worse than Final Fantasy 13, right? So I'm excited. When you
It's
think
been
about
a
it,
long time since a good Final Fantasy
and it's been a really
game.
long time since a good Final Fantasy game. It's been more, what, 2005 or 6? When did Final Fantasy 12 come out? 2006.
I like to think
2006.
of it as, well, Final Fantasy XIV's happening all the time, so really we're never without a good Final Fantasy game.
True. So Final Fantasy 14, I guess, is the last good Final Fantasy game. Although I suppose, speaking
The
of
release Final Fantasy XIV was also bad.
that's true. Yes, well, that was not the worst game they ever released. The release Final Fantasy 14, the original version is we don't speak about that one. I think
Yeah,
the biggest problem with
we-
that one is that you had got tired and you had to become like a farmer or something. I don't know. I don't remember exactly why people hated that game because
You had to become a...
yeah.
We were so excited about FF16 that we almost didn't buy Tears of the Kingdom because we thought we'd drop it as soon as FF16 came out.
Except it's coming
And it
out.
was a big reason that we bought a PlayStation 5 was to play this game. Maybe I know a lot of people are excited because the game looks like a return to roots of like kind of medieval fantasy. I kind of disagree that Final Fantasy is necessarily medieval fantasy, but people are excited about that. Whereas I think I'm more excited because I like to see the Final Fantasy series do kind of wacky things, and the fact that there's rail shooter summon battles is kind of hilarious to me.
Yeah, technically most Final Fantasy games are early modern, not medieval, in my opinion.
I think that
An oversimplification?
having played Tears of the Kingdom, which is relevant because also the producer of Final Fantasy 16, Yoshi P, is also playing Tears of the Kingdom, and
Yes.
therefore this is not relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Tears of the Kingdom is a fun game for sure. I think no one would ever argue that Tears of the Kingdom isn't great. I think that's an agreement from most people say. But I will say that the thing about Final Fantasy series is that it's always inspired, even if it's not always good. Tears of the Kingdom is probably going to be better than Final Fantasy 16, just as it probably is an objective final product.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not. We'll find
We
out.
live in hope.
We live in hope.
I
but
hope
prob-
that FF16 at least has faster load screens.
we live in hope, right? But probably not. But I think Final Fantasy 16 may in fact be ultimately be more memorable and a more exciting experience than Tears of the Kingdom in some ways, because Tears of the Kingdom is Breath of the Wild 2, it's Legend of Zelda. It's kind of, you know what you're getting when you come into it, which is not a bad thing. But when it comes to Final Fantasy 16, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to get, which is what's kind of exciting about the series as a whole. Whenever there's a new game, it's always something different, even if it doesn't always work, and sometimes it often doesn't work, and it hasn't worked that well for a while. It's still exciting when you go into it. They always make up something new. It's not Legend of Zelda again, but it's always the same goddamn thing about Zelda and Link and green cloaked heroes and the Ganondorf and time and blah 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 whatever. It's the same thing.
Hey. Ganondorf is not in all the games. Sometimes the bad guy is just Ganon, sometimes it's Vati.
Sometimes it's just a big mask.
Yes, sometimes it's Majora.
Sure.
That's why Majora's Mask is Escapist's favorite.
Yeah, my two favorite ones, my two
Zelda
favorite
game.
Zelda games, Link's Awakening and Majora's Mask.
Those are solid picks.
Yeah, I mean, I know, I don't want to sound like a Legend of Zelda hater because I really like the series. But when it comes to Final Fantasy, it's the reason why I like the series, or why I'm such a big fan of the series, is because the series is so varied and strange, and you don't necessarily going to expect what you're going to get into. Because like the trailers don't really, I mean, the trailers set the tone in the sense that this is a game, there are chocobos, the main character's named Clive, there's going to be war, there's going to be really big monsters, but that's true about video games in general. So when you actually play the game, it's going to be very different from Final Fantasy 15 for sure, and that's kind of what's exciting about it, in the sense that that they always try different things.
Maybe you can talk about your theory about how Square Enix reacts to each previous Final Fantasy
they just make
game.
the exact opposite game every single time, and they have for a while.
Oh, that's not a bad theory, actually. Elaborate.
I mean, well, okay. Where does it start? It probably starts in Final Fantasy. I mean, it starts at the very beginning, right? Because we have 1, right, which is one is D&D with the serial numbers fired off, right? We just kind of playing D&D, no plot, no characters, just gameplay, which is fun. Then we make Final Fantasy II, which has a plot, and the gameplay, because the gameplay of Final Fantasy I was fun, the gameplay of Final Fantasy II has to be terrible.
They did. That was specifically their plan. Let's make it non-functional on the Famicom.
Yeah, let's make a game that is not fun. Because Final Fantasy I was fun. But Final Fantasy II, we need a plot and we need the game not to be fun. So they did that. And then Final Fantasy III is back to Final Fantasy I again, right? With we're getting away, no plot, the game is fun again, we added the job system back in. And then 4 is they keep going back and forth, right? 4 is back to plot, the game is less fun again, but the game is not as not fun as Final Fantasy II, at the very least.
It is, there's an arc of history that's leading us to, of course, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. But yeah, then 5 goes back to job system, no plot, more fun. 6, plot, less fun.
Wrong.
Gameplay.
The gameplay. I like Final Fantasy VI better than 5.
This is what happens when you invite 2 history majors onto your podcast.
Well, Final Fantasy VI, I like Final Fantasy VI more than 5 as well.
Yeah.
Because Final Fantasy VI is a more complete experience. Because I'm not saying that the gameplay being... the Final Fantasy V gameplay is more engaging, more in-depth than the Final Fantasy VI gameplay. The Final Fantasy VI gameplay, I think you could probably program ChatGPT to play that game. It is...
And they won't mess up
easy.
the Blitz inputs like you.
Yeah, I can do the Blitz inputs unlike me.
You still can't get it?
Yeah. Say that again?
You still can't get the Blitz inputs?
What? I don't know. I haven't played that game since I played that for the wiki 10 years ago or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, on the Let's Play you couldn't do it at all.
Because I was playing on the emulator with the keyboard. It's pretty hard.
But now I get to watch him play Tears of the Kingdom and fuck up the L controls every single time.
Okay. I'm gonna be defense. I'm not a gaming boomer. I can play games pretty well. Here's the Kingdom. There's something about that game. The configuration of the buttons causes just absolute chaos to my mind. I don't understand why they're arranged in the most confusing way they could possibly be arranged. I feel like the triggers do each trigger does a variety of different things. And if you press the wrong trigger, you just instantly kill yourself in a fight every single time. I feel like, and then the jump button and the run button are on the opposite ends, and then it's just every game should just follow the Kingdom Hearts button layout. That has perfect button layout.
Every game should just have Kingdom Hearts combat.
Yeah. Yes, Legend of Zelda needs a dodge roll. Link's little hops. They might have worked in 1998. He needs to actually be able to roll.
Well, he did have a dodge roll for decades until I think Breath of the Wild finally got rid of the dodge roll.
Yeah, he had one in
Skyward Sword to get rid of the dodge roll.
I don't know. Skyward Sword was a load of fucking shit, so I don't care what that game did.
The Skyward Sword is a bad dream from which I'm trying to awaken. So I don't remember what happened in Skyward Sword, to be honest. It's I remember a lot of waving the Wiimote around and him not doing what I wanted him to do.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I've derailed us from the history of Final Fantasy. It's not the,
which itself was
Apologies.
a derailment from whatever topic we were supposed to have.
Well, we don't want to talk about... But yeah, then we just kind of go back. And then 7 is more of a... The thing about 6 and 7 is that those are two that actually kind of don't... The ones that don't follow that mold. Because 7 is kind of very much a strict continuation of 6 in that way, right?
Yeah.
Or the grander... It's kind of like the bigger 6. The setting is pretty similar.
Even Aerith's theme sounds exactly like Celeste's song that she sings.
Yeah, and it's like a bigger, more ambitious version. And then Final Fantasy VIII is like the Final Fantasy II version, where we need to make the gameplay not fun. We need to make the game much more extensive. There needs to be more strange mini games. But Final Fantasy VIII and the story needs to be weirder. But the thing about Final Fantasy VIII is that I guess it's still following that pattern where it's still like the even bigger version of 7, where the graphics are better. There's more mini games. The gameplay is more arcane and strange. The plot becomes grander. They go to space again. Which is something I've learned or realized, that they go to space a lot in Final Fantasy. They better be spacefaring in Final Fantasy XVI. Because I'm certainly not going to be.
You go to space like every even-numbered game, I think?
They go to space in 4. They go to space in 5. They don't go to space in 6.
My theory's destroyed already.
6. They go to space in 7, 8, 9. Yunalska kind of lives in space in 10.
Sin fires a laser that's so big that the camera takes us out to space in order to show him, like, tearing the entire planet apart. Which doesn't seem like it causes any problems, because nobody seems to react to that.
But after 8, we go back to the thing where 9 is like, we're trying to get away from 8. We're trying to do a medieval fantasy setting again with very classic Final Fantasy IV-esque gameplay. And then 10 is like, nope, we're going to go all the way into the future. We're going to dump the whole ATB system. Characters are going to be completely different. There's new voice acting, and we need to have everything needs to be exactly in a straight line. And then 11 is kind of a... We're just going to skip over that one, because it's just its own thing. And then 12 is the opposite of 10, open world. Voice acting is actually good. The writing is actually good. But the combat is sort of very much sort of trying to get towards a real-time thing. And then 13 is, of course, the opposite again, where it's like a narrow hallway. Because Final Fantasy 12 was not very well released when it was released, right? People didn't like that game until they re-released it a few years ago. I feel like we were ahead of the curve.
I think it got good reviews, but I think the reception was generally a kind of eh. And I think with the re-release, it got kind of better ones, but it's never really been on anyone's top 5 list from the sense I get. Since I get the most beloved ones are like 10 and 7 and 6. And 12 is just not on there. I don't
understand why 10 is so beloved, to be honest. Speaking as I'm a 10 denier. I'll be honest.
I think it's just a lot of people, maybe their first console was the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
And that was like their first big RPG. Yeah.
I think it's definitely a lot of nostalgia. The game has not aged well.
And there are a lot of people seem to really like 8, which is kind of universally agreed to be a bad game, but it's very popular.
You know what? I think I've turned around entirely on 8. I think doing the Let's Play, I used to hate 8. I used to think 8 was as bad as I think Skyward Sword is now. And having done that Let's Play, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of cool stuff in this game. Even if it's a complete fucking mess, I respect the hell out of their attempt to get all this shit in this game. And I could never imagine a modern game managing to pull off as many things as 8 does.
Well, the thing is, though, that's actually what Final Fantasy XV is in some ways. After the update that they made. And I'll do the caveat after the update, because the original release version of Final Fantasy XV is bad. It's probably one of the worst. It's one of the worst Final Fantasy games they've ever released. It's very bad. But after the update, which we replayed the two of us.
Oh yeah. That's we could get to the whole reason why I invited you guys on, which is that Yuanchosaan, this is the first time you played Final Fantasy 15, right?
Yep, that's right. Okay. Well, I played like a very tiny amount. No, I never booted up the disc. My uncle bought it for me for my for Christmas, and I never played it. Whoops.
You didn't miss.
That's anything. Okay, because the release Final Fantasy 15 was a mistake. Anyway, so we recently replayed it. So it's her first time, and I played it. The re-release or the remake.
Wait, Skate. Sorry, I have to interrupt you one last time. For your grand theory of Final Fantasy history, I've decided to write your thesis for you, which is Final Fantasy is a land of contrasts, in conclusion.
It's a contrast. It exists in the liminal space between right and wrong, good and evil. It floats between two different polar opposites, and antipodes, if you would say.
Yes. At least it's never not boring, except for Final Fantasy 15.
Well, 13 is a straight line compared to 12's open world, and then 15 we're back to the open world again. And instead of an asshole, we have some nicer people, plus Gladiolus.
So the thing about Final Fantasy 15 is a lot like 8 in its ultimate final release. The original version of Final Fantasy 15 is not a competent piece of anything, but the final version that we have today is indeed an extremely inconsistent and imperfect game in a way that is very bizarre and strikingly strange, but is also a game that has kind of a charming ambition and very much it feels like an experience that, as you said, like with Final Fantasy VIII, it feels like a game that they tried to do as much as possible and failed. But the final version of this game, the Royal Edition, is actually kind of a marvelous failure in a way. Where if you come into it expecting, if you don't expect, I wouldn't say, if you don't expect a Final Fantasy game, if you just kind of go in without any real preconceptions of what the game is supposed to be, it's kind of a joyful experience in that way. Even though the game is completely a mess, and while the Royal Edition fixes a lot of things, it doesn't fix the fact that the game's plot is told as poorly as possible, and just remarkably poorly, in a way that is as confusing and as baffling as they could possibly tell a story that is actually kind of interesting, except for the fact that they just do not make any attempt to make it comprehensible or told on screen in any way. But this version of the game is I think something that has risen in my esteem, because I know we did this ranking of Final Fantasy games. I don't know how many years ago it was.
Like 4.
You and I. And we put Final Fantasy 15, I think, third to last, right? I think it was 2 and 13 were only the two ones that were worse.
You know what? I gotta put that. I have to put that particular episode on the feed. Maybe I'll do it next month, because this is the second time this has come up, like this month. Lucas also said that he loved that episode. I mean, he thought it was one of the better ones we've done. No.
So we put that game pretty low on our list, and I think it's risen in my esteem, having replayed it. I think significantly risen in my esteem since I played it. Because I was not expecting it to be as enjoyable and fun as it was playing it the second time. Because the first time I do not remember enjoying the game very much at all. I mostly did not have a positive experience with Final Fantasy 15 the first time I played it. And the second time playing through, it was surprisingly engaging. And
we finished a game, which is very special for me because I'm extremely bad at finishing video games. I usually get bored like halfway through and stop playing.
Okay, Yuanchosaan, what did you think of Final Fantasy 15?
I thought I might start actually by going through an overview of what the Royal Edition is, because we've mentioned it but haven't really explained it. So, in terms of my opinion, I liked the game. It is strangely charming, despite the fact that the plot is told as badly as possible. You can kind of see the skeleton of what they were trying to do. I like they really nail the interactions between the 4 characters. And I think it sort of harkens back to some Lost Innocence. This is not a game which is sarcastic about its characters. It's not making fun of the entire thing like Forspoken. They're just genuinely friends. They're generally having a good time. It's not an edgy game at all. It's kind of the opposite of an edgy game. It's a campy game. And I think that's a quality that's quite lost in a lot of modern video games. It's very strange. I think another interesting thing to me about this game is that the Final Fantasy, I think, is a series which people of both genders can enjoy. It's not really targeted in one way. FF14 is quite unusual amongst MMOs for having quite close to even gender ratio. This is a game for women that specifically targets women, and I think that was off-putting to some people. The NHK did a survey of Japanese players of gender ratio of which game is the favorite, and something like 75% of women said that their favorite game is FF15, compared to just like 25% of the men. The next one is F9, actually, which is 60% women and 40% men. And talking to other women who've played this game, they do really enjoy FF15 as a result of this. It's kind of a friendly game, I guess. It could have been much better than it is, and it's a real shame that it is not better than the current product that we have. But I certainly played a much more enjoyable game than the release version, and it's a game that I would recommend. So in terms of the Royal Edition, if you own a copy of FF15 already, then you get it for free as an apology for, whoops, we're really sorry the release games sucked. And the things that they've added to it is probably most importantly, you get episode Gladiolus, Prompto, and Ignis. And and you also get some updated cutscenes and added fights and some weapons to make the game more playable and various other things.
Even easier.
And yeah, yes, it makes the game even easier. A game which you can already not die in. I don't think we died a single time, did we?
No.
Except in like bonus boss fights.
And crashing the flying car.
Yes. I know. I think I like it because there's not really other games like this. Like, who else but Square Enix would release just some wacky game like this?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because my opinion on Final Fantasy XV, when I wrote my review, I remember the most damning thing I wrote was it felt like the Final Fantasy game that anyone would make. And I might have been thinking more in terms of system and world map, less in terms of character interaction and the cooking and the things that people seem to really love about it, which I guess I didn't do nearly enough of, because I only put like 10 hours into that game, if that, and ended up halfway through it and then got very unhappy with it.
The thing about Final Fantasy 15 that is, certainly the side quests in Final Fantasy 15 are all collecting bare asses, and they're all terrible, almost universally, which is something that is definitely a huge negative, that the World Edition is not fixed. They're the most basic ass fetch quest. Just go here, kill big bird, get its eggs. Except, of course, the best side quest ever written for video games, which is the Cup Noodle side quest, where you have to find the ultimate flavor experience and go season your cup noodles.
I didn't do that.
And
What's the Cup of Noodles side quest?
You just walk around. If you walk near the Cup Noodle quest, Gladios taps on his shoulder and he's like, "Noctis, do you love cup noodles?" And Noctis is like, "Yeah." "Well, you need to get the ultimate cup noodle experience." And so you have to go and you have the choice of either climbing a mountain to go get eggs from a giant bird, fighting a behemoth for meat, or going and slaying a giant squid for fish. And then you make ultimate cup noodles. And also, the Royal Edition does include a giant cup noodle hat you can put a Noctis at all times, and it appears in all cutscenes.
I love that. You know what?
You can also.
I take it all back. Everything bad I said about Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, no other game is this stupid, really. It's cannibally stupid. And the cutscene, you should just watch the cutscene, because at the end they made the voice actors do 2 takes of it, and one take they did it completely, absolutely sarcastically, and that's the one that they kept, and it's really funny, where they just talk about how good cup noodles are.
Yeah, because cup of noodles, like, I don't want to break anyone's heart here, but cup of noodles is terrible. It is easily the worst kind of ramen you could find. And you know what? I'm still hungry after I freaking eat it, so it completely fails in every way.
There's also a side quest which they added into the Royal Edition. So one of the things that they added was that Alticia, the Venice city that you spend a lot of the game trying to get to, is actually a bigger area now with like quests and hunts and so on. And one of the quests is you overhear that Luna Freya's dress is on display, and you make this pilgrimage to it, and there's no quest markers. You just have to kind of like wander around Venice trying to work out where this bloody thing is, whilst overhearing instructions from people to say, "Oh, I think it's like up that way, or like down this corridor past this building." Really captures the experience of trying to navigate around a European city without any phone service. And then you look at Luna Freya's dress, and that's it. And it's a really charming side quest. I can't see many games doing something like that. I don't think most big budget games are that interested in romance, even though Noctis and Luna Freya's romance is not very well written. That's one of the big failings of the game.
Well, they don't really have one, because you never actually reach her in the game.
They never share any lines with each other in the entire game.
That can't be true. There have to be
They
flashbacks,
never,
right?
Well, yes.
They interact as children. The Royal Edition adds more Luna Freya cutscenes so that you can enjoy Luna Freya's character a bit more.
Okay, I just had I lost my train of thought for a second.
They never in the normal game, like in the actual game where Noctis is an adult, they never say anything to each other.
Yeah, so it's just like Breath of the Wild, where everything interesting plot-wise happened in the past, Except in Breath of the Wild, you actually do save Zelda, whereas in Final Fantasy 15, she gets fridged. And then Noctis grows a terrible beard about it, I think, is what happens.
No.
Yeah, the Daddy Noctis is very handsome.
I don't like
Prompto's facial hair, however, is terrible. Okay, so
you know what? This again is I am a straight male, and this game just may not be for me.
But the thing about Final Fantasy 15, besides the facial hair, which of course is very important, but you're right in the sense that there's a lot of things that are bad in trend chasing in this game, which is a big turnoff for sure. Like the side quests, the open world, which is like a trend at the time, and sort of more non-linear sort of MMO style quests picking up things. And I think all of that doesn't really work. I think that the side quests are almost all bad, except for the ones we were talking about. But I think that the road trip experience, there's never really been a big budget game that has sort of a real road trip experience like this one does, in a way that is quite engaging in its own way.
Yeah, let me think.
And I think that's unique, and no one else has ever attempted it. And it is very weird that a Final Fantasy game, because it has almost no real Final Fantasy. It's almost indistinct. It's almost completely non-discernible. It's like almost not a Final Fantasy game in any way, like except for the fact that occasionally you're driving down the road and just like extremely well-rendered tonberries pop out of the ground and start walking towards you.
And stab you.
Well,
there's crystals, there's summons, there's chocobos, there's one plush Moogle. Not really very many Moogles in this game. It's most of the things that you need for a Final Fantasy game, according to Yoshi P.
Yeah.
The open world, it's, I wasn't that keen on it initially, but it's a very beautiful world. This is an extremely beautiful game. The character designs are very well done.
It's one of the most beautiful. On the Royal Edition, or the version we play now, the game is extremely beautiful.
Is this a PS5 version, or it's just...
Yeah, we played it on the PlayStation. It's a PS4 game, but we just put it into our PlayStation 5.
Okay.
And the load times are now almost non-existent, so that's a great improvement when you play it on the PlayStation 5.
Using that SSD.
And
SSD.
It's a gorgeous game.
To cycle back to road trip thoughts, I was just thinking, are there any other games that do road trips? And there are. There's like Last of Us. There's a few indie games I can think of. But there aren't any there aren't any that do dude road trips, where it's like you're 19 and you're gonna go drive with your bros down somewhere. I think this is
like
the
driving
only
across the country when you graduate college, right? Like that's
exactly.
what this game is, right?
Yeah, it's a gap year game. And I guess I just didn't get to see enough things I wanted of a kind of story of like that. By the way, I have a grand theory of how I can fix Final Fantasy 15. And that would be, they actually are a boy band. And you are driving from gig to gig. And then they sing J-pop.
That's what Nomura wanted to do. It was supposed to be a musical.
Yes, it should have been a musical.
He watched Les Mis, and he really wanted it to be musical.
Well, no, not a musical like that. It has to be more like Andrew Lloyd Webber campy stuff. I'd say like Love Never Dies is what they should aim for. And the worst songs in Love Never Dies, not the good ones.
I think honestly that would have been an improvement. I think it would have been. I think people would have hated it. Final Fantasy fans would have hated it at the time. But I think it would have definitely been an improvement, for sure. I think it would have been. I agree.
Oh, I would have hated it, but I think I would have come around eventually.
But yeah, I was surprised for sure. I think I've come around about this game. I think it's risen significantly in my esteem, having played it. You can kind of see its great ambition. And I would say the Final Fantasy Royal Edition does add a lot more just random dialogue and interaction to the characters and give, like, for example, Gladio will wake you up and it's like, now it's time to go run on the beach. Noctis, you must go and run with me. It's 5 a.m.
And then they go for a run. Or you go and catch them. Gladiolus wakes you up and is like, hey, there's this really big fish. You want to go and catch the fish? And then he like shouts encouragement at you. The fishing music is replaced by a butt rock version of the fishing music, like just the most obnoxious Gladiolus rock possible. And he's like, you're almost there, Noctis, and he helps you pull it up. He jumps into the lake to try and like save your fish for you. It's really cute.
So are they
The Royal Edition also
topless
lets you-
when they're running on the beach?
Sadly, no, but you can
Oh my
unlock
God.
topless Gladiolus.
Ah.
You can unlock topless Gladiolus as free to
Okay.
play as DLC.
Alright.
That you get.
We
You unlock
mostly
that
put
costume for him.
Noctis in the mariachi costume.
Yeah, I mean, but maybe, yeah, there's a mariachi costume for him. You can also put him in like some sort of weird, like 5-year-old, like a chocobo costume for like a 5-year-old kid. There's a lot of stupid things you can put Noctis in, which is, and as I said, carries over to every cutscene. So when Noctis is mourning over Lunafray and he's wearing a mariachi costume and crying, it just significantly improves it. And you can put 30-year-old Noctis in the mariachi costume. He goes and confronts Arden. You know,
I think this game is also significantly improved by playing it with someone because it's quite a funny game. Kind of unintentionally funny a lot of the
intentionally
time.
funny.
But
I think sometimes it's being funny
I-
on purpose. Like
yeah, I
for
think
sure. Like they knew what they were
they
doing
put
with the
the
mariachi
cup noodle
costume.
hat in there for a reason.
Yeah.
Also, if you put like you can put Gladiolus' sister as your photograph choice for taking to the afterlife, for Luna Freya to look at, and Gladiolus comments on that, and he says, "Nice choice," basically.
He has a sister? I don't remember that at all. Which one's Gladiolus?
yeah,
He's the big guy, right?
Yeah, Gladiolus is your big buff friend,
And his
your
name,
bodyguard.
Scathe, as the Latin expert, his name means something penis, right? Tiny penis?
Small penis. Yes.
Small-
No, it's a friendly penis. Yeah,
Okay.
small friendly penis.
Small
Okay.
friendly penis. Yeah.
Small friendly. There's our podcast title. We're not doing that.
Yeah, Ignis is your cook and your chauffeur, and the DLC shows that he's clearly in love with you, unfortunately, for Noctis getting married to a woman. And then Prompto's just a friend. So it's kind of funny at the start where Gladiolus kind of does not like you very much.
I think there is the yes, and the game is like a buildings are on, but as I said, everything about the plot, like the macro plot as a whole. So when you're playing the game, and each individual moment when the characters are having interactions, and like the dialogue is actually, I would say, pretty well written, and the characters feel fleshed out and interesting. But then when you actually play the game's plot and experience the game's plot, it is told absolutely as terribly as possible. The plot, like every single decision they could have made the plot more confusing and told worse than it could have been told in any other way. Like everything that ends. So the game is theoretically a Bildungsroman for Noctis to grow up and go conquer the world. Except instead of doing that, he just gets shoved into a crystal, and they just skip 10 years, and he just becomes an old soul in a rock instead of actually having any of the character development happen on screen. It's just all these sort of strange decisions. Characters die off screen. You spend the second half of the game on a train. There's just lots of extremely bizarre decisions that were made in this game.
Speaking of weird decisions,
go on.
Uni, did you watch the Final Fantasy XV movie?
Yes, AP and I watched it together. I'm not sure why we did. It didn't make any sense at all to me. And it wasn't very good.
No.
That's true. That's correct.
Did you watch it
Somehow
before
Advent
the game?
Children continues to be the best Final Fantasy movie, even though that movie is also bad.
Did you watch it before you played the game, or did you watch
Yes,
it?
I watched it much before the game.
Okay, because as I recall, that movie only makes the opening of that game so much more confusing.
Yeah. So I wanted to go through some of the plot things, but also before I do that, I wanted to comment as well. One thing I really like about the game is a lot of Final Fantasy games, there's like important character moments where they like bond and like come to deeper understanding of each other and so on, and those can be quite memorable scenes. Whereas FF15 really succeeds more in the unimportant moments where these dudes are just like hanging out. Sometimes they get randomly petty and annoyed at each other. They've been on a trip together for a long time. Sometimes they're like best friends. They move in and out of it and so on. They just decide to do random things like take photos, and they comment on things and make fun of each other. I think that's really cute. It's a very organic way of building relationships between your characters, which is a bit more unusual in this series because it's not restricted just to cutscenes. It's like a very advanced form of the Donald, Goofy, Sora interactions into Kingdom Hearts 3, actually.
Wait, did you say it in the right order? Is it Donald,
Yeah,
Goofy,
Sora, Donald, Goofy every single time.
Oh,
Can't be
Sora,
any
Donald,
other.
Goofy. Okay, all right. I
Yeah.
have to correct that. I'll correct that in post for you. Don't worry.
Thank you. So what they were wanted to do, and they've managed to fix some of this, but you kind of have to piece it together yourself, was that Kingsglaive was supposed to be in the game, and Noctis was supposed to be the main character. It was about you trying to fight your way out of the city, but they couldn't manage to make it work in the game due to, I don't know, PlayStation 4 restrictions.
Or they just ran out of money because they waste. Okay.
Yeah, they ran out of money.
Sorry, they wasted money on a lot of random stuff. For example, all the cooking, which looks amazing. Like the actual piece is the game that's never made me more hungry than to play it. It's a terrible game to play for your weight. You play it and you're like, I want to eat all this food that English is making. But the reason why it looks so good is because they actually went into the forest and brought a whole bunch of professional chefs with them to cook a bunch of hundreds of meals in the forest to make sure it was actually doable, and then take pictures of them and digitize them to the game.
Wait,
this is
they
the kind of stuff they wasted money on.
All that's accurate.
They
That's
made
all stuff
every
you can make.
single meal.
They made every single meal. Yes, they made every single meal and digitized it.
And they used only the equipment that you could use whilst you were camping.
That's correct. Yes.
Incredible. You know what? I have to try that now.
Oh, there's a fan-based cookbook of this entire game, by the way.
Yeah, but I've seen it, but I don't think the fan-based cookbook is like you have to go make risotto on a fire pit.
No, that's true. But yes, in the original people who made this game, because they apparently had just horrible budgetary, just did not know how to budget anything, and their lives decided to spend their money doing that instead of actually making a game. But anyway, go on, sorry.
Anyway, so as the game is now, you leave the city. Noctis is bitchy towards Regis, and then you go to Golden Key to try and catch his boat, and you fail to catch the boat because Insomnia gets invaded. So I think the intention was that you go back to Insomnia and you try and rescue Insomnia, and you activate the ring, the wall, and so on, and fight your way out again. Because you go back to Insomnia and all you do is look at it and you go well, that's sad. And then you start doing the Royal Arms, except you do a couple of them and then you forget about it, which is a problem that happens a lot in FF15, where you do a few things and then we completely forget about it. So you do a few Royal Arms, and you're like, oh, you gotta go and see Iris now, Gladiolus' sister. And then whilst you're doing another Royal Arm, you get Arden randomly appears and he's like, I'm on a road trip with me, Noctis. A side note, Arden is amazing. The fact that he's your creepy uncle is really funny to me. The voice acting that they chose for him is amazing. He's one of the highlights in the game for certain. And episode Arden is a lot of fun. And you can put Arden in a bunch of silly hats.
Yeah, so the main gimmick of episode Arden is you can put him in any hat you want. And also constantly rap music is blaring in the background the entire game.
The rap music is sung by the guy who does Persona 5 rap music as well.
Oh, wow.
It is extremely
Wait, Persona
funny.
5 rap music? Or Persona 3?
Just Persona rap music in general. The Persona rap music guy.
Okay. I don't remember there being rap in Persona 5. Maybe
I think it's mostly Persona 3 that has a lot of the rap music. But anyway, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
There's just
And
constant
Arden
rap
gets
music playing in the
points for
background
destroying
about
all the festival memorabilia that Regis has put up to celebrate the Lucian line. So you'd go around and destroy his TV screens and so on.
And
then the game comments on how much it costs.
Yeah, it's that looks expensive.
I remember when that game was coming out, they had art of every single character. There was that big artwork with all the characters' faces. And I remember, I don't even know if all those characters even made it into the game, or some of them probably have 3 lines that are barely there. The old scientist dude, I don't remember what his deal was.
He only has 1 line in the original game.
Yeah. And I remember seeing
But
art
he's insanely important to the plot. So if you play the DLCs, it turns out he is responsible for everything wrong that happens. He's episode Arden set I don't know, 30 years ago or whatever, and Versailles is extremely handsome for some reason. It's very strange. He's got a very deep evil voice that you're not expecting to come out of his handsome youthful face. And he's so evil that he turns Arden evil, because Arden's just kind of depressed at the time, and Versailles like, you should be evil, and Arden's like, no, I just want to die.
And so episode Prompto is about also Vestein's there, leaving tons of documents that you have to listen to and read, which he also does in episode Arden. He's like some sort of strange Resident Evil like obsession of documents, leaving them everywhere. You read for lore, and then
We'll get to episode Prompto in a bit.
Yeah,
So Arden's taking you on your road trip. You do Taishan, cool set piece. This game doesn't have enough cool set pieces. Leviathan's cool, but it's not actually a battle. So there's really like 3 memorable battles in the entire game. That's a real big problem about this game. I think the dungeons are fine, but the boss design is just dreadful. And it's really revealed when you play the DLCs, because all the DLCs have amazing bosses. And you're like, oh, I forgot that bosses could actually be interesting. So you do Taishan, then you do Ramu, and then Ramu's not even a fight, you just go and touch a tree. I think they wanted to do fights, and then they just didn't, because of budgetary restraints, and then you stop doing them.
Yeah,
for some reason.
As I recall...
you don't do any more summons until the mandatory Leviathan summon.
Okay, so rewind back. I was talking about the artwork before the game, and I remember seeing Arden's face, and I was thinking, I hope that guy's the final boss. And I got my wish, I guess. As for Ramu, as I recall, you just go to 3 places and you get 3 stones, and then you have Ramu, and that's it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And then Ramu comes and bails you out of every fight that goes on for too long. He looks really cool. And then you go and then your car gets stolen, and then you have to go and like evade the Magitech facility that derails you from getting summoned. You get your car, and then Cindy's like, I can turn your car into a boat for you, and then you can go and finally meet your fiance in
What is this, Top Gear? You turn your car into a boat?
Yeah, the Royal Mission allows you to drive
they
the boat.
added that you can turn the Regalia into this horrible off-road monstrosity as well.
And then it becomes a plane.
Yeah.
Yes, and it crashes and is useless. But you can also turn it into a motor, into like a monster truck, and then drive it around and have bizarre off-road races that don't use semi-function.
And Royal Edition also adds that there's an ocean now, so you can drive your boat around as you please and go fishing. And just spend like hours with making your friends sit in the boat watching you fish. There's like a fishing radar as well. There's a lot of really bizarre side quests here. You can go and find and see Bismarck, who's just like a big whale here, and watch him bring the fish.
Yeah, because he's not a summon, as I recall.
No, they're just like, there's another god of the sea, and they're like, what? And you're like, yeah, go and find some birds, and Bismarck appears. It's very strange. It's very half-baked, along with much of FF15. So, previously in the original version of the game, in around chapter 8, Gladiolus is like, hey, Noctis, I gotta go somewhere. And Noctis like, what? Okay then. And he just disappears for a chapter. And he comes back, and they're like, oh, you're back.
And he's missing an eye, right? Isn't he?
And he's just got like some big scars, like one scar over his face and some over his chest. And Gladiolus like, yep, other guy got off worse, and then it's just like never talked about again. And I can see that's absolutely completely baffling in the original game. But what you're supposed to do here is play episode Gladiolus, where you play as Gladiolus, who has great gameplay. You actually have to press the buttons instead of just holding it down.
We haven't even talked
the
about the
parry
gameplay
is
of
important.
Final Fantasy 15.
I don't want to talk about Final Fantasy 15 combat. I hate it so fucking
bad.
much.
It's bad.
So
It's bad.
bad. It was maybe one of the worst combat systems I've ever played in any game. Other than like Star Fox Zero, which had controls that actively made me feel like somebody had reprogrammed my body and put extra knees in there. That Final Fantasy 15 is like the second worst I've ever had.
Episode Gladiolus is very short, but you work out what Gladiolus was doing, which is he went on the trip with Kor to go and kill Gilgamesh and get a cool sword, because his ego was damaged too much by Ravus kicking his butt. And what you learn from episode Gladiolus is that Gladiolus is a total badass, but we kind of knew that already. Yeah, so you fight Gilgamesh, and then you have Kor as the super boss. It's pretty short. I think it's the first one they released, and they didn't put that much effort into it, but it's quite fun. Then the next one is when you finally get to Alticia and you do the Leviathan battle, and then you wake up and Ignis is blind and all your friends hate you for some reason. It's like, doesn't make any sense. Everyone's really hateful. The atmosphere is terrible in the following dungeon, but the game would have been very much improved if they actually did insert episode Ignis into this, where you take control of Ignis. There's a kind of like capture the flag game where you reclaim districts in Alticia, which has become like a big battlefield, and you can traverse over all the ceilings and so on, and Ignis has a hook shot for some reason. His gameplay is also quite fun as well. He's kind of overpowered and he like jumps around like crazy. And use like in radio communications with the other characters, including what's her face, lady who looks like Hillary Clinton, the person who rules, who rules Alticia.
I don't know what her name is.
I can't remember her name. I think we
Clinton.
just refer to her as Hillary Clinton. And it's pretty great because you kind of reclaim the city. You get to see the destruction. Alticia is really fun to play around. It reminds me of what they should have done with Kingdom Hearts 3 San Francisco level, where there should be something to do amongst this big, beautiful city. And Ravis becomes like the guest party member, and you can kind of see he's got a cool character arc, which they just completely do not add into the game.
Who is Ravis?
Into the base. Ravis is Luna Freya's brother. Exactly.
Wait.
Ravis's character is supposed to be... Yeah.
From the movie, that guy, right?
Yeah. So the idea was that Ravis felt betrayed because Regis ran away from Tenebrae with saving Noctis rather than try and fight the Imperials when they took his home. And so he believes the Lucian Kings are not worthy, and he tries to take the ring himself but is rejected. And then he goes through like this character arc of being a rival to Noctis. Or
allegedly goes to this character arc.
Also, well, he's supposed to. This is what they were trying to do.
Yeah, but he's not in the original game like at all. I think he's just like a random boss
that's the problem.
Off topic.
Yes, and that's... but they were trying to do something, and he's actually quite a fun character because he's just unbelievably, unrelentingly grumpy. And he's kind of wearing a FF14 costume as well. So it's like more choices for the women playing this game. So you get Ravis, and then you get Ignis actually claims the ring, and you get to see what happens. And I don't know why this was not in the base game. Well, I mean, I know why, which is that they ran out of budget, but episode Ignis is actually very good, and it's got music by Yasunori Mitsuda, which is also great, because they invited a different guest composer. Yep. Yeah. The Chrono Trigger Chrono Cross guy. So episode Ignis is great, and then you play through the linear section of the game, which is very bad, where they tell you plot as info dumps. Shiva randomly appears and like info dumps some stuff about Solheim, which is never touched upon again in the game. And you end up in to Arden's dungeon whilst he taunts you over the PA system.
Okay.
Did they add that you could play as Gladiolus in the Royal Edition? Was that in the base game?
They allow you to play as you could only play as Noctis in the original versions, or any additional characters are all from the Royal Edition. So yes, you can in the Royal Edition you can play as all the other characters as well.
Yes, and because Noctis had kicked Prompto off a train, and then he just you rescue him later. Episode Prompto is what happens whilst he's been kicked off the train, which is Arden just decides to psychologically torture you because Arden is a man who wakes up every day and chooses violence. So he takes you to a research facility.
Yeah.
Yes. He takes you to a research facility, taunts Prompto about being a clone, introduces him to his extremely evil father. Yes, Prompto is a clone, so the Magitech soldiers are made out of clones of this guy.
Just letting you know.
Just letting you know.
Wait, is he a
so you
clone
read the styles
of... Is he a clone of the original?
He's a clone of Verstein.
The evil scientist, yes.
Wait, no, that doesn't make any sense. That can't make sense.
Yeah, so...
Because I remember...
the Magitech...
Sorry, I remember there was an anime OVA where they had I don't remember 4 episodes or something, and Ignis was Noctis's best friend as a kid. He knew him his entire life.
Well, you see,
Oh, no,
Prompto was
Prompto
actually...
was rescued as a
Prompto,
baby.
sorry,
so
no. Yeah, that
yeah.
one. The blonde one.
So the the plot is that the Magitech soldiers are made by combining demons and like humans, and Versailles initially is like, I really don't want to do this, it's kind of evil. Then he's like, I'll just use people who are already dying of the demon malaria. And then he says, this isn't working enough because there's like adults have too much personality, so I've got to use babies. So, but there aren't enough babies dying of malaria, so I'll just make loads and loads of clones of myself as test tube babies and give them demon malaria. And Prompto is one of
As you
those
do.
babies.
Okay, that plotline rules. I wish that was actually in the base game.
Yeah.
That's extremely fucked up.
Anyway,
It's like
so Arden takes you to the research facility to make you confront this, and he said, here's your dad, and then forces you to kill your dad. And then he makes fun of you for having killed Versailles.
Classic Arden.
Yeah, it's a third person shooter for some reason.
It's also really bad. It's really, really bad.
I was
But
a
anyway,
third.
that's-
Oh my god, this game.
This is
This
third
game.
person.
This game.
I-
Like, you know what? I was starting to come around. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I could give Final Fantasy 15 another chance. And now I'm like, oh no, it's a complete incoherent fucking mess. I think I'm good.
And it's also got a small open world for some reason where you can do side quests to upgrade your snowmobile. Yes, and then you fight this guy that's turned into a giant worm.
Yeah, why not?
Episode Prompto is not that good. Yes. So I think they would have wanted to add all the summons and maybe, I don't know how to fix the train section. I think they wanted to make Tenebrae an actual playable section, not. And instead things are told randomly to you by like a 10-year-old child. That's really weird. I don't know what to say about that. But the ending of the game is great. Noctis being the crystal for 10 years is not great, but everything after emerging from the crystal is amazing. I think they would have also liked to make an actual World of Ruin, but again, no budget for that.
Yeah.
They did make the Ruined Insomnia a big playable level, so you can go and explore there. There's side quests for some reason, even though it's the final dungeon. They added some more boss fights as well, so instead of just going up to Arden going, nope, just you and me, Noctis, goodbye, your friends, you fight three Lucian kings, possessed by Arden, and each of your party members becomes playable for part of that to use their special skills and gameplay to overcome the preceding three bosses. So it's like a boss rush, it's fun. Yeah, they vastly improved a lot of things in the Royal Edition.
Indeed.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is that Prompto's gameplay is honestly, it's very strange. I don't know why they felt the need to make it a third-person shooter, but it is. Yeah, it's just another one of the weirdnesses of Final Fantasy 15 is like Ignis and Gladiolus and Arden all basically play like Noctis, but Prompto is a third-person shooter, sort of.
I'm starting to see why Hajime Tabata quit this company and decided to do mobile games instead.
I mean, it's the Gladiol gameplay, Ignis gameplay, and Arden gameplay is a lot of fun. They really improve on Noctis's gameplay, and I'm not sure why Noctis's gameplay is the worst out of everyone's, except for Prompto. Yeah. And then episode Arden is you get Arden's backstory, which is kind of unnecessary. I think you can tell that Arden's just really annoyed, wants to choose violence because he's doomed to die, and he's just like, I'm actually ready to die, but let us inflict as much pain on people as possible. The plot doesn't make sense unless you realize that Arden's just kind of suicidal.
And then you played episode Unifreya, right? Yeah, you know, the good part of the game, right?
Oh, I actually read the plot of the novel, and I think the game would have made much more sense if you were supposed to do episodes Gladiolus, Ignis, and Prompto as part of the game, and then the DLC was the Dawn of the Future stuff plus episode Arden. That would actually make sense. Dawn of the Future involves you realizing that Bahamut is actually evil and teaming up with everyone to go and kill God. Classic Final Fantasy.
Yeah, that's how a Final Fantasy game should be, instead of like, well, you fucked up, and everyone dies, and none of this had any meaning at all.
So episode RNA was supposed to be that you explore the world of Ruin and you seeing all the people who are like Iris and your friends, how they're surviving in the new destroyed world. Then Luna Freya is about her getting resurrected and becoming like the vessel for the evil demon plague to gather all the evil in the world for Bahamut. And then episode Noctis is you team up with Arden and everyone else and kill God.
Yeah, because we can't let Unifreya actually ever fucking do anything. She's like the second most important character. You know, I'm still mad. I'm still mad about Stella getting replaced. You know what? Fuck. I hope this gets fixed in Kingdom Hearts 4. I'm willing to believe. Kingdom Hearts 4.
What's her face? He's like, what's her face? It's
Strelitzia?
Strelitzia, yeah. It's the same person. Let's be honest. It's the same character.
Eventually Nomura will bring the Final Fantasy XV that was promised in Kingdom Hearts 4.
I hope Yuzora is not an edgelord though, because I really like Noctis' character. I like that he's kind of awkward. The backstory is apparently that Regis wanted to keep him really sheltered, so he just kept him in like the palace the entire time, and he doesn't know how to interact with other human beings.
He doesn't like carrots.
He's kind of shy and a loser.
I think there's a clip. You
expect him to be cool, but he's just kind of lame.
His buddies have to go pick the vegetables off of his burger for him because he doesn't like them.
Yes.
So he's like a 6-year-old.
Basically, he's like an immature prince. The episode Ignis bonus fight, by the way, is really great. Ignis fights Noctis as a training match, and Ignis bets Noctis that whoever loses has to eat all his vegetables for a meal. So Noctis goes all out. So he starts off by using all the royal arms against you. Then he starts using Armiger against you. Then he pulls out both of his friends to go and beat Ignis up. Then he pulls out the Ring of the Lushi and casts the death spell on you. It's a very long boss fight, but it's great. You should play episode Ignis just for that. Yes.
Okay.
Noctis would rather kill his friends than eat vegetables.
Okay, so not to jump to conclusions, but where would you guys rank Final Fantasy XV now on your list of Final Fantasy games?
I would put it, somewhere in the middle.
Okay, so it's gone from the bottom up to the middle. That's improvement.
It's past Final Fantasy X. It's probably past Final Fantasy 3 and 4.
Okay.
But I think none of the other ones.
What about 5?
5 and 15 are around the same for me. I think is my
I'd say
opinion.
So that's where you'd put it too, Uni?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so Final Fantasy. Alright, so yeah, it is a mid-game, confirmed, even amongst the people that have been gushing about it for the last 45 minutes.
Well, the thing is that the scale is up, because most Final Fantasy games are good, except for 13 and 2, right?
Yeah, I'm using bad math right there to manipulate a point.
I think the thing about Final Fantasy 15 is it's both a mid-game and the opposite of a mid-game, where it's not like it's average. It's that some parts of it are really very, very... Parts of it is just unbelievably, abysmally bad. And unfortunately, the bits that are bad are the macro pot and the gameplay, or the combat, which are two crucial parts of your game. So it's very successful in a lot of ways, and then very not successful in the most important ways.
Okay. I still would rank Final Fantasy 15 probably way at the bottom, because I didn't play that version of the game. They asked for $60 for the base version of the game, and I'd say the most fun I had with it was a random 1-week event that I hope is in this Ultimate Collector's Edition, which is you're in Venice and it's Chocobo Festival times, or maybe it's Moogle Festival times.
No, that's the Assassin's Creed event, so that's out. But there's a Terror Wars event because Sakaguchi pulled a bunch of favors, I guess, and Terror Wars is his mobile game, and Uematsu does the music.
No, I'm sure there was a Chocobo parade.
And there's an FF14.
No, it did happen. It just was a timed event that isn't in this game.
So that's
unfortunately.
still that was the one part. All right.
Yeah, that was the Assassin's Creed crossover event.
Okay. I'd put it honestly I'd put it below Final Fantasy 13. The game I experienced at least. Because as much as I dislike so much about Final Fantasy 13, I felt like that was a game that was completed. And 15, I can't look at it without remembering the backstory of Nomura just kind of shitting around for 10 years. And then eventually Hajime Tabata being dumped this project that it seemed like he never really wanted to make and never really knew how to do. Because so much of the lead up to that game was him like releasing demos and then begging players for feedback. Please tell me what you want. I don't know. Just give me an idea so this game could be fun. And then it really wasn't. And but you know what? I'm glad it has an audience. And I've seen a lot of online buzz for people who are like, I love this game. I played it when I was 15. And this is Final Fantasy to me. So you know what? Even if games suck for me, it means that the wheels of Final Fantasy keep on turning.
Yeah, I think that's what I enjoy about this series, and that's what's important for me. I don't want Final Fantasy series to release a boring game, a game that's a product. I want them to do weird things, even though they don't always work.
Yeah. I think we want things to continue to be strange, and I feel like Final Fantasy 16 is continuing to be strange, and that's something that is exciting.
And looking back into that kind of PlayStation 1 or SNES PlayStation 1 era of games where Square released a lot of weird things that didn't work. Like, I mean, you really like Live Alive? Is it Live Alive? Live Alive?
Live Alive.
But that game was kind of Live Alive was a critical failure. Basically, it didn't sell very much.
I don't know if it's a critical failure, but it was not released in the West. I think it got lost in the shuffle.
Chrono Cross, a really flawed game as well. I can't believe Square managed to release so many games in a short period of time as well. We looked at the list. They released like 9 games, I think, in the space of like less than 5 years. Was it?
Making games was easier back then. You didn't need HD.
Yeah, there was so much creativity. You could take so many risks. I think FF15 was a risky game that didn't quite pay off, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we have anything else, or are we basically done?
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
Play episode Ignis.
Okay. Play Final
episode
Fantasy.
Is fun, although.
Yeah.
Episode Arden is fun as well, but you actually have to pay for it, so
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I don't know if that's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe in 5 years I'll have you guys here, and you'll have played what the hell is that game? Forspoken. Are telling me how that's actually a legitimately great game.
I'm not playing Forspoken.
You're not playing. Yeah, I played. You know what? I'm the dumbest fuck here because I bought Forspoken full price, played 4 hours of it, thought it was. I have nothing like bad to say about the experience I had, and I just have never been able to gather the energy to go back and finish it.
Well, you could have Some Color Mage on the podcast and ask him why Stranger of Paradise is actually a good game.
He does appear to believe that, yes.
Haven't we done this? We must have done a Stranger of Paradise episode. I feel what? Have
he
we
does
not?
Appear to believe that, yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, Final Fantasy 15 plus 1, which adds up to 16, my calculator tells me. That
Final
will
Fantasy
be
15 plus 1. You shall not redo.
Yeah, that's it. You know what? That's what Kingdom Hearts 4 is. It's Nomura's Evangelion rebuild, but it's for Versus 13. So Final Fantasy 16 will be out on June 22nd, and presumably in a month we'll all have opinions about it. Unless, of course, you're playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and you can't put that game down in time. Because that game's long as hell, and then Final Fantasy 16 will be out, and it's like... Am I going to put this down for Final Fantasy 16? Will Final Fantasy beat Zelda in the ability of you putting a game down and picking another one up? This is a very difficult battle. This is the crisis of modernity right here.
Indeed.
Yeah.
This is what Malthus was warning about. Not an overabundance of population, but an overabundance of AAA video games.
Yes. The neoliberal theory that choice brings pleasure and efficiency and betterment. Actually, no. Choice is bad and paralyzes us and destroys us. So, choosing between Zelda and Final Fantasy.
Were wrong for some reason.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I guess I'm going to end there. One other note is Some Color Mage mentioned this last month, and I want to mention it because I didn't get to be on that podcast, but Waypoint is shutting down, which is one of my favorite video game podcasts. There will be no Waypoint thoughts on Final Fantasy XVI because they'll be gone on June 2nd. And that just sucks horribly. I'm endlessly depressed and just made deeply sad by the state of video game journalism and media. The complete destruction of most abilities for professional discourse about video games is very short-sighted, and I think will do the industry very bad. They might think that just being able to generate a whole bunch of buzz by having a state of play that's nothing but an hour of trailers, and that's all the discussion that needs to have is good. No, people do actually need something more. There's more discussion to be had. There needs to be higher level things. If you just allow video games to be the industry to decide the source of discourse, we'd never go back to Final Fantasy XV all these years later and come up with different opinions about it. That game would just be forgotten and another piece of trash, and there'd be no history to anything. So that all sucks, and, fuck capitalism, go home. You guys don't listen to Waypoint, do you?
No.
No.
But however, we can agree with fuck capitalism.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think we are both strong supporters of. I think the general gaming population does not value having things like art degrees and writing classes enough, which is why a lot of games are badly written.
Yeah. And, lack of humanities degrees, I think, in the greater video game industry is why so many Western games have not been able to develop a steady, ecosystem. I look back at a lot of other franchises, and Final Fantasy is doing great compared to other ones. Like, Overwatch is completely fucked. Halo could be dead in a few years. These are gigantic money-making operations that could have surpassed Final Fantasy, and you know what? Final Fantasy might outlive all of them. Just
indeed,
endlessly.
I think just because
go.
Turns out Final Fantasy was actually pretty inspired after all in
Yeah.
terms of a video game series. That I think, and then inspiration goes a long way. Being able to, I think the ability for Square Enix to make a whole new world and whole new characters every single game. Well, not so much, it's not literally every single game anymore, but every single game for a while was, I think, something that people took for granted. And those, right now it's not happening a lot. But Square Enix continues to persevere and continues to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. When Stranger Paradise was, we were seeing all those trailers, a lot of people were asking, who on earth asked for this game? Who is this game for? And I kind of still feel that way about Stranger Paradise. But if Square Enix does not go around games which make us ask, who is this for? If they're not making games just for themselves, and I think you lose a lot of creativity and inspiration that way. I think playing more Final Fantasy games, we've been playing games together when we're too tired, because Scafus has been studying and working. That has given me a lot of appreciation for just how much sheer talent there is at Square Enix. It makes me worried that they don't seem to have that many
Sorry, you got cut
directors
off
at the moment, but
okay.
The music talent is one thing. Oh, sorry, where did I get cut off?
You were saying direct, and then my Discord threw a pause in.
I said I'm a bit worried because we don't seem to have that many directors at Square Enix at the moment who can make good games, but their talent pool is still really strong in a lot of areas. We didn't really talk about the music of FF15, which I think is great. Yoko Shimomura is in fine form, and that the fact that they've had so many amazing components work for them is a great part of the series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's genuinely Yeah, I don't think we have anything else to say. Let's wrap this thing up. So this is the Final Fantasy Wiki podcast, where monthly we talk about wiki stuff and Final Fantasy stuff, and sometimes we jam Anglo-Saxon history and various socialist bullshit in here. I'm your host, BlueHighwind. I'm usually on if there isn't a funeral in my family. And yeah, our podcast music is by Expert Novice. It's La Montanos de los Jóvenes Caballeros, which is the Mount Colt's theme from Final Fantasy VI off the OC Remix album. And what's our website, Scathe?
www.fandom. I can't even remember what it is anymore.
Yeah,
Final
even
Fantasy
you.
Fandom.com.
Yeah, you know, it's not easy. It's ever since we switched from Wikia to fandom, how the hell do you know what the website is? So yeah,
Impossible to tell, honestly.
we'll be back. We'll be back in a month with Final Fantasy 16 thoughts. I mean, it's gonna be a big episode. We might go for like
That's
4
gonna be
hours.
exciting for sure.
Yep. So thank you all for coming and listening, and that's the end of this. Goodbye.